So good morning and welcome, Dr. Esselstyn.
Michelle, what a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your
Not
time.
every day I get to go to Florida.
We need you in Naples,
Yeah, I got it.
Florida. So I had tons and tons of questions from clients, family, friends about what I'm calling your food prescription. And I've been on the diet now myself for 7 years. And I remember coming to your home and sat down in your living room with you and Ann in 2017. And I remember sitting on the couch and you saying, no oil, salt, sugar. And I thought I was going to fall off the couch because at that time, I was eating oils and sugar and salt and chicken and every, as you say, nothing with a mother or face. And when my partner at the time, when we left your home, we were so, what's the word I want to use? Confused. We didn't know what we were going to do and how we were going to live on that diet. We drove to the closest pizza restaurant and had pizza. But then the next day we got very strict and went on your diet and it worked. And ever since then, my entire life has changed. I'm forever grateful for you. And I've made it my mission now to coach my clients in Naples, Florida, and all over the country on your book, Prevent and Reverse Heart Disease, and the diet that you prescribe. And as an athlete, I have that in common with you as an Ironman triathlete. I can't believe the recovery from my workouts and how good I feel at 47 years old. I wish I knew this in my 20s. I probably would have gone professional. And so just so grateful for you. And every day I get to wake up and watch clients transform their health when they go on this diet 100%. And as you know, it works. So I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being on this call.
Delighted to help.
Thank you. So I'm just going to jump in, and I just want to say for some people that are just watching that maybe don't even know who you are, I just want to say a few words about who you are. And we are now live from your home in Ohio. I recognize the background. And so Dr. Esselstyn, you received your BA from Yale University and your MD from Western Reserve University in 1956. And this was the part that I was just so impressed with, pulling number 6 ore as a member of the victorious United States team and was awarded a gold medal at the Olympic Games. Pretty remarkable. Do you remember those days?
Yeah.
I'm sure. You were trained as a surgeon at the Cleveland Clinic and at St. George's Hospital in London in 1968 as an Army surgeon in Vietnam and was awarded the Bronze Star. You've been associated with the Cleveland Clinic since 1968, and during that time as president of the staff as a member of the Board of Governors. You chaired the clinic's breast cancer task force and headed its section of thyroid and parathyroid surgery. And you're a fellow of the American College of Cardiology. And your wife, Ann, who I just adore, I love when she sneaks in the background. She's hilarious. You've both been following the diet since 1984. So I just wanted to ask you, maybe in a quick little summary, what was it that had you and Ann go on this diet that so-called works?
Well, I think that in the late 1970s and early 80s, I was becoming increasingly disillusioned with the fact that for no matter how many women I was doing breast surgery, I was doing absolutely nothing for the next unsuspecting victim, as it were. And that was sort of motivated me to do a bit of global research, and it was quite striking to see that there were multiple other cultures where breast cancer rates were 30 and 40 times less frequent than the United States, places like Kenya. And if you look at rural Japan in the 1950s, breast cancer was very infrequently identified. And yet, as soon as the Japanese would migrate to the United States, by the second and third generation, they now had the same rate of breast cancer as their Caucasian counterpart. And perhaps even more powerful was the rate of death from prostate cancer in the nation of Japan in 1958, in the entire nation, 18. The most mind-boggling public health figure I've ever heard. By 20 years later, 1978, they were up to 137, which still pales in comparison with the 28,000 men who will die this year from prostate cancer in this country. So it was along about this time that I began noticing that there were multiple cultures in the planet where heart disease was very infrequently, rarely identified. And it sort of dawned on me that there would probably be more bang for the buck, since heart disease was the leading killer of women and men in Western civilization. If we could get people to eat to save their heart, then they would more likely diminish the likelihood of having the common Western cancers of breast, prostate, colon, and maybe pancreatic. So that was the background. And when I came back from this global research and shared it with Ann, and I just knew that I was going to do this study. And I think I really now had the background from an epidemiological standpoint that would really clarify putting in a foundation for this study.
I know I didn't ask this on the questions I sent you, but I was curious about when you went on the diet. Was there a moment that you actually, I know for me, there was a moment I felt different. Was there a moment for you that you felt different, whether it was younger, more energy, joint pain went away? Do you remember a moment that you felt, oh, this is working on me personally?
Probably it wasn't during the first 4 months, because I wasn't smart enough when we started to realize that I had to give up oil. So, and I know my cholesterol really wouldn't drop much below 160, 155. As soon as I stopped the oil, it was down to 119, my total. So I guess you can say that's probably when I really became a little elated about the fact that we really now had some answers as to what we wanted people to do to make this work.
Was it hard for you giving up the oil during that time?
Not at all. Not at all.
Do you ever miss it?
Not at all.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that. So some of the questions that I received from some clients.
Let me just say one thing about when I said that I didn't miss it at all. What happens is when you eat this way, and the Monell Chemical Sensus Center in Philadelphia has pretty well shown us what goes on here. You're really down-regulating in your brain a sugar receptor and a fat receptor. And that's why people ask, well, Dr. Esselstyn, when you start people out on this program, why don't you gradually, work it in over a period of months? No, we just do it absolutely cold turkey. Why? Because we try to encourage them to succeed in lowering the fat receptor in their brain. And for instance, if you're good all week long adhering to the program, and then you decide on the weekend to go back and relent, then you do not succeed in lowering the fat receptor, and the craving remains. And then you have, obviously, you're constantly in a state of denial, and that leads to failure and recidivism.
I'm smiling and laughing about that because, as you can imagine, as a health coach, I hear often, well, the weekends are a cheat day.
Oh, geez. That's the day.
Days.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
No, that's when you really initiate failure, when you cheat on the weekends. Yeah.
Yes. I noticed something yesterday. I had a friend visiting from New Zealand, and I cook 90% of my food at home, probably 95%. And as I mentioned, I've been on the diet about 7 years now, and my cholesterol dropped 62 points within the first 3 months that I went on this diet. And I noticed just from eating out one meal yesterday with oil and salt and sugar, I had night sweats last night. You know, a different taste in my mouth. There were all these little symptoms, had a stomach ache that quickly within 12 hours because my body's used to living a, you know, on the clean diet. And I think about people that are doing that at every meal, eating out. No wonder things start to build up over time.
Well, eating out is a tremendous challenge, and what I try to suggest to the patients, when you have to eat out, don't just sort of bury your head in the menu and mumble something to the waitress like, "Go easy on the oil." That doesn't work. What you do is you turn your chair and you look them squarely in the eye and you say to them, "Understand this. I am deathly allergic to a drop of oil." Oh my, now you got the So they sit down next to you, going over the menu together, and sure enough, there's not a solitary thing that you can have. It all has oil. So then you flatter them and you ask to see the chef. Chef comes out. Explain to the chef, can't have a drop of oil, no animal protein, no dairy, no sugar. He comes back 21 minutes with a lovely plate of beans and rice, or it might be a baked potato with a vegetable. But you never go out to eat to further destroy your endothelial cells.
I like that. I'm gonna attempt that next time. I usually use the word highly allergic.
Well, I think you got to get death in there. That
I'm adding that. That's great. Okay, so a few questions. Also, my mother's been on this diet now a little longer than me. And also that was kind of a driver for me to continue to stay on the diet. And so my mother had a couple questions. One of them is, my mother has Addison's disease. And she's concerned constantly from her doctor, not a lifestyle medicine doctor, a regular traditional doctor, that she's not getting enough protein because she's lost weight, she's thinner, her skin is starting to wrinkle up a little bit. She's 75. And so she's constantly worried about this protein piece. And I just wondered, any thoughts about somebody who has Addison's disease? Should they be so concerned about all this? She's again on the diet, no oil, salt, sugar, about protein.
Well, actually, there's a couple of points I made, I think, about the protein. First of all, ask your mother, has she ever heard of anybody who ever went to an emergency room eating this way who said, "My God, help me out, I'm low in protein"? See, just the reverse. We'll come back to that the concern, well, we'll say it now. There's a wonderful Harvard study on murine study on mice where they were able to show that using these litter mates of mice, they gave them alternate diets when for 12, then they would sacrifice them, sadly, at 12 weeks. But the mice that were eating the typical Harvard lab chow really had no problems at 12 weeks. And the other group were eating those with an elevated cholesterol and LDL that had been oxidized. And in other words, the other group were eating sort of the standard Western diet. And at the end of 12 weeks, when they sacrificed them, there was already a significant layering of vascular disease. Then the third group was exactly the same as the middle group with the Western diet, except one exception. They gave them an elevated protein diet.
Hmm.
The artery was practically blocked already. The protein had so accelerated the deposition of plaque in the arteries of these mice. And then the other one that shows the downside, and by the way, that protein happened to be that they were using at Harvard was to add to that diet was casein. Casein is the leading protein in dairy, as you know.
Sure.
Now the other place where they're high protein, I'm just thinking. Now the Harvard study is a good one, but Dr. Colin Campbell, who's my good friend from Cornell, who wrote the China study, he did this work where he took rodents and gave them an alpha toxin, which gave them a studding of cancer nodules in the liver. And if he gave that then a diet that was high in protein, 20% protein, those tumor nodules that absolutely took off, growing furiously. However, if you kept the protein not at 20%, but only at 5%, there was no increase in the size of the cancer nodules. And what was the protein they used? Casein, again. Pretty profound. So
Yes.
that's the downside of protein. Now, what about getting enough protein? What we're eating in this whole food plant-based diet, whole grains loaded with protein, legumes loaded with protein, beans loaded with protein, vegetables, protein, potatoes, protein. You're just not ever going to be protein deficient. Not going to happen.
I do try and tell her that. My mother. Thank you for that. I have a question. I was in your seminar last Friday, which was fantastic, and we'll have that information at the end for people to contact Jackie, your assistant, and register for your upcoming seminars. And you had mentioned about alcohol. I get this question a lot. You know, now you want me to give up alcohol? I'm already whole food plant-based. I'm already doing no oil, no sugar, no, and how am I going to have a life? You know, most of my clients are social. And so I just wanted to ask your thoughts. Does alcohol raise cholesterol, LDL? And do you recommend eliminating all alcohol out of someone's diet if they have high cholesterol?
It certainly will raise your triglycerides, and everybody universally understands it. Alcohol is a toxin. It's toxic to your brain. It's toxic to your heart. It's toxic to your liver. You know, everybody is familiar with the patient of people who have too much alcohol and they get liver failure or liver disease. They know that if you get you can do the same thing and injure your heart. And of course, everybody knows that try driving when you've had 3 or 4 drinks. I mean, you're all over the road. I mean, it just obviously is crazy how it affects your brain. But I think that being realistic about it and not wanting to be trying not to be too hard on people. If somebody wants to have a glass of beer on a Saturday night or a glass of wine on a Saturday night, I don't think that's going to be problematic. But think about it. If you do that, that's 52 times a year. And line up the bottles. How many bottles of wine would you have gone through if just with one glass every on the other hand? But that's not what happens. Suppose that there are people who are having, I mean, I've had people who say, well, Dr. Esselstyn, I don't want to change too much because you can understand that I like to have 3 glasses of wine to relax in every evening. Well, just total that up. 3 glasses of wine every evening for 365 evenings. You have really pushed of alcohol through your system. That's a lot of toxins. Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a great way to view it. I'm going to bring that up as well. What are your thoughts about sweeteners like monk, fruit, stevia?
Certainly I'm down on I don't know that the monk fruit has been shown to be problematic from a health standpoint. but certainly recently, or erythritol, yeah, I guess another one is erythritol.
Mhm.
It really gotten criticized as stevia for increasing your risk for heart disease.
Hmm. Is there a study on that?
They get rid of the stevia, the agave, and the erythritol. Yeah.
Is there a study on that? Because I know a lot of people, even myself, I do stevia.
There was a
Just maintains the sweetness.
pardon?
Just maintains your wish for sweetener.
Oh, no, no.
You can show your face, Anne. Everyone loves you.
Yeah, there was it was on the internet. Oh gosh, it must be several months ago now, where it was really it was really cited as being problematic from heart disease. I was surprised. Yeah.
I'll have to look into that. So I had somebody ask a question about, they've been on the diet strictly now for 15 years. This gentleman was diagnosed with glaucoma, and every time he goes to the doctor prescribes another pill for him. His eye pressure keeps going up, and then his blood pressure goes up from the pills. They've tried natural plant-based extracts, supplements, that have also increased his blood pressure. Can you shed any light about this? Any scientific research on perhaps glaucoma? This happened, and strictly on the diet.
I don't see how anybody could blame the diet. I mean, it's so interesting how people will, when they make the change to their diet, the various things that they can begin to assume. They'll say, my God, my car had a flat tire the other day, and I never had flat tires before until I started this diet. My cat got sick. I never had a sick cat before I started this diet. And, I have no information that eating the healthiest diet on the planet would ever give you glaucoma. I just don't have any data on that whatsoever.
I think she meant, or her husband, maybe that he's been on the diet and surprised that he has glaucoma.
So by the way, that maybe the diet kept him from having glaucoma for 15 years.
Oh, I like that. I will let him know that. So some of my clients, this is a big one. There's a lot of, I live in my kitchen, I'm hooked on this diet for the rest of my life, but most people, especially here living in Naples, even in Los Angeles, I have a lot of clients out there. People are social. They're going out every day, eating out every night. And this is the reality of what I'm seeing in with my clients. And once they go on the diet, I try and prep them to do their meals, at least breakfast and lunch at home. The dinner is where they kind of go off a little bit. But even when they are in a social setting, they have a really hard time with the peer pressure. And I just wonder, do you hear this a lot from their friends? Their friends stop calling them, they tell me. Their friends are pressuring them. Why are you eating this way? Why, it's...
You're losing friends because you're eating a healthy diet. You need new friends, and then that's easy.
I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, my gracious, who can imagine that your friend left you because you're eating a healthy diet? I mean, that's about as dumb as it gets.
Have you heard this before though from people that they have trouble socially? They're afraid to, they pick around the plate because they don't want to cause a scene. I mean, this is a real reality for a lot of people.
Well, I think it's, I can't, no, I'm not familiar with it. I don't think I've ever lost friends. Yes, perhaps if there is some hostess who learns out in advance that we may be, Dr. Esselstyn is strictly vegetarian or vegan or whole food plant-based nutrition, he would never eat this. They say, oh my gosh, I can't invite them, that might embarrass us. Fine, I could care less about going to a party like that.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you.
On the other hand, rather than have them feel awkward about it, usually when people do this, they are jealous
Mm.
you're eating. And there's a wonderful guy, I can't remember his name right now, who's spoken at Rip's place, who says when people begin to get, you know, how do you get your protein? What makes you feel that this diet is safe for you? Instead of tackling them in this, just say, well,
John
you know,
Lyle.
yeah, Doug Lyle has always had a wonderful talk about this. He said, just sort of say, well, you know, my doctor said it wouldn't hurt me, and I just thought I'd give it a try. It certainly may not be right for everybody, but it's something I just thought I'd give it a go at. That seemed to be feeling okay with it, and you know, just
I like that.
don't take it on head on.
Sure. I recommend your book in the beginning of my program, and also The Pleasure Trap. Those are the two main books, and the China Study as well.
Doug Lyle was one of the authors of the Pleasure Trap.
Yes,
Yeah.
I like him very much. And sometimes I'll read the book with clients, chapter by chapter each week, just to support them. So I'll ask one more question. I get this question a lot about eggs. What's wrong with egg whites? Why can't I eat eggs? I'm doing everything else.
Animal protein.
Aren't egg whites healthier? That's the next question I would get. Than yolks.
Animal protein. Egg whites are animal protein.
And what would you say after that? And if somebody said to you,
Animal protein, but animal protein, you know, injures endothelial cells. Yeah.
but my doctor said they were good.
I should just take a moment and say a word about the causation of heart disease, since it's by the age 60 and 70, it's practically universal. At least that's what the professor of public health at the University of Pittsburgh, Lou Culler, did a study, a 10-year cardiovascular health study, and he made the following statement, which I included in my book. All men age 60 and all women age 70 who have been exposed to the traditional Western diet have cardiovascular disease and should be treated as such. Maybe not enough for having had their stroke or their heart attack yet, but his point was that when you carefully study these people, they are already beginning to lay down disease. And that gets its foundation when we look way back when we were, if you look at the autopsy studies of women and men between the ages of 17 and 34 who have died of accidents, homicides, and suicides. Now, early coronary artery disease is ubiquitous. Everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Graduate from high school in this country, you get a diploma, and you also get the foundation for heart disease. Not enough for your events yet, but this isn't a disease that suddenly hits you in your 60s and 70s. You've been working on this disease since you were really a teenager.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yes.
And also it's what you have to be aware of is increasingly this idea that 50% of Americans, by the time they're age 85, they have dementia.
Mm-hmm.
Well, where is that coming from? I mean, you lay the foundation for that dementia and how you behave in those preceding decades. But if you're eating plant-based, you're keeping your blood vessels clean, and you're avoiding the challenges to your brain, and you're going to try to keep yourself thinking clearly as you get up into your later decades.
Yes. I do have one more question, and then I'm going to have you do your rap song. Do you know, actually, I Googled the green rap song of Dr. Esselstyn, and it came up. You have your own rap song. We might have to get you an album label.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as since COVID, is there anything besides B12 and vitamin D that you do personally as far as supplements go besides the whole food plant-based diet? Are you doing any additional supplements like zinc or selenium?
No,
I'm
I do take for my cereal, I do have flaxseed meal.
Mhm.
Some days it might be chia seeds, and I do take B12. Yeah.
Okay, nothing in it, no zinc or selenium.
No, is that what they take in Okinawa? Is that what
No,
in rural China?
good point. Do you think we can see Anne's face for a second?
Absolutely, I'm sure.
Anne, you're so fun. I want to tell you,
Hi.
I've recommended, hi, this is
Hi.
Dr. Esselstyn's wife. So I've recommended your book to
We have
several
a
clients.
plant-based woman warrior.
Yes,
Stay bold, eat delicious.
we're going to put it down below so people can buy it. And it's been fantastic. And I'm walking clients through your recipes. So
But one of the things that we are taking is amla powder made from the Indian gooseberry.
I
It's
just,
got-
I just ordered it on Amazon after your course, your seminar on Friday. It's also an Ayurvedic herb. I didn't know that. Ayurvedic medicine.
Just a little bit is tasteless. You take it.
What, the Amma?
Amla.
Well, I want to thank you so much for, and for your support too. And I just think you're both fantastic. And
Now, you are amazing what you're doing. Goodness gracious, making
I-
a difference. out
thank
there.
you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I've got a moment. I'd like to mention one other
Sure.
thing about and that is, you're familiar with this because we emphasize it during the seminar,
Mhm.
but all your listeners may not be aware of that. But I think one of the things that makes it easier for patients, especially those who had previously had heart disease, and that what's the causation? How does this disease develop?
Mm.
You've heard me say that all experts would agree that where this disease has its inception, its onset, its beginning, is when we progressively injure the life jacket and the guardian of our blood vessels, which happens to be that delicate innermost lining
Mhm.
called the endothelium. And the endothelium makes this absolutely magic molecule of gas called nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is responsible for the salvation, the preservation, and the protection of all of our blood vessels because of its remarkable functions. For example, nitric oxide will keep all the cellular elements within our bloodstream flowing smoothly like Teflon rather than Velcro. It keeps things from getting sticky. Number two, nitric oxide is the strongest blood vessel dilator in the body. When you climb stairs, the arteries to your heart, the arteries to your legs, they widen, they dilate. That's nitric oxide. Number three, nitric oxide will protect the wall of the artery from becoming thick, stiff, or inflamed, protect us from getting high blood pressure or hypertension. Number four is the absolute key. A safe and normal amount of nitric oxide will protect us all from ever developing any blockages or plaque. So literally, everybody on the planet Earth who has cardiovascular disease has their disease because in the previous decades, they have so sufficiently trashed, injured, compromised, and turned their endothelial system into an absolute train wreck that they no longer have enough nitric oxide to protect themselves from making blockages and plaque. However, the good news is this is not a malignancy. It's a benign foodborne illness. And once you can get patients to understand that never, 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 never again are they to pass through their lips a single morsel that is going to further injure an already train-wrecked endothelium, because then the endothelium will recover, make enough nitric oxide so we can no longer have disease progression, but we often will see significant elements of disease reversal. So I think that when patients grasp that and understand it, and they know what are the foods that every time they eat them, they're injuring their endothelial production of nitric oxide, Now they know how they have caused the disease, but what we're doing is we're showing them how to be the locus of control to halt and reverse their disease.
Wonderful. Beautifully said. So
Now,
if I ask you,
what the foods are that do injure?
well, before that, if I say, can I have oil, Dr. Esselstyn, can you do your yell at me, no oil?
No oil.
Do it again.
No oil.
That's the best. That's your famous line. Okay, let's do the song together. I even printed out the words so that I can do it along with you.
Bok choy, Swiss chard, kale, collards, collard green, beet greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, paprika, cauliflower, arugula, and asparagus.
Mine was not that fast. Bok choy, Swiss chard, kale, collards, collard greens, beets greens, mustard greens, turnip greens, Napa cabbage, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, cilantro, parsley, spinach, arugula, and asparagus. I'm gonna practice.
You got it. No, but isn't it fun how whole food plant-based nutrition can restore your memory?
Keep your memory.
I guess I need to be on the diet 10 more years and then I'm gonna have it down. I'm gonna have it down and be able to do it with you. Dr. Esselstyn, thank you so much for your time. I have literally 50 other questions that I've received from clients, and I hope we can do this again. I appreciate your time and everything that you're doing in the world. You have made such a difference in my life, my mother's life, and my mother's off her medications, and I'm 100% convinced it's due to being on this diet. And I just want to thank you for that, because my mother's very special to me. So thank you. Okay.
Take care.
Thank you so much. Bye, Anne.
Ciao.